Hi, I'm Teresa from Phoenix Gate Crafts, and today I want to talk about the different materials that you can find in crochet hooks and do a cost-benefit analysis of the different kinds. So maybe you can see this video and determine maybe a type of crochet hook that will work best for you. And I will be reminding myself throughout this entire video to say hook and not needle, because I literally just got finished doing the same thing but talking about knitting needles. So if I accidentally call it needles, it's just because I've just developed a habit of saying needles now. I mean hooks. So there are several different materials that you can get crochet hooks out of. So I've noticed that most crocheters aren't too particularly discerning about the material that the core of their crochet hooks are made out of, because we typically don't have very many stitches on our hooks at any given time. We do, we have one loop on our hook, and then we do, a handful of loops for, say, a double crochet or a treble crochet, and then we pull through all of those and we wind up with a different loop on our hook, and we move through our stitches very quickly because of the system. So at any given time, we probably only have about an inch or so of loops on our hook max, and we always seem to be going back down to about one loop. So we typically have preferences, but if we wind up with a material that we don't like, it isn't necessarily a deal breaker for most of us. For example, I have plastic and I have metal that don't have grips. So these feel very similar. Now be careful with the cheaper plastic kind, because these can bend a little bit and you can get these to snap. That's the big downside with plastic. But they are very light in the hand. And a real quick note, the difference between plastic, wood, and metal in terms of weight, we're talking grams, we're not talking ounces, we're not talking pounds. The amount of weight is very minimal, and once you start getting bigger, thicker crochet hooks, they tend to go hollow to minimize weight. So weight, unless you're really having a major issue like having trouble picking it up, weight isn't really an issue with crochet hooks. A bigger issue is balance. If you're having trouble picking up a crochet hook, go please see your doctor. You're having a different issue that you probably should address. But there's not much difference between this one and this one. This one has a more plasticky feel. This one's a bit smooth. You might have a little bit more grip on a wooden crochet hook, but for the most part they should slide fairly well on most different kinds of fabrics. The biggest difference is in the hook itself. There are A-line hooks and there are streamline hooks. I don't really remember the different names. Basically, the two different kinds you'll see are the Susan Bates style heads and the Boy style heads. A-line and inline. There we go. I remembered names. And those just kind of go through holes a little bit differently. And honestly, depending on how you crochet, might not make any difference for you because the difference is so minimal. Some people say that certain types split the yarn more, but honestly, I personally feel that's more user error than actually tool issues. But we're not talking about that. That's a different video. We are talking about materials. So for the most part, with the actual tips, there isn't very much difference. The shape difference, as you can see from these two, the blue one and the purple one, the shape difference is so small of a difference. Really hard to see the difference. They are different. My camera's not picking it up very well. The biggest difference is actually in the grips. So as you can see from these ones, Whoops. The handles are pretty much the same. If you have arthritis, you might not like metal because metal tends to steal heat from your hand. But in terms of shape, these are not very different. But if you have arthritis, if you have tendinitis, if you are developing carpal tunnel, these handles are not necessarily going to be super comfortable for you. In which case, there are a few options. One very common option, if you have metal needles, is to make your own grips out of clay. You can get clay of different colors. You can just form it around the base of your hook, and you can really shape it to your hand until it gets to a comfortable level of thickness and grip. And then you bake it at a low temperature in your oven until it hardens, basically allowing it to cure, and then you've got your own homemade grips. This is totally doable. I have never done it because I don't like that. The clay doesn't feel particularly good in my hand. I prefer something with a little bit more, not necessarily actually being squishiness, but a more grippy grip, which is why I like these rubber style grips. They're not very big, so you'll notice I actually have very small hands. So most of the time I've noticed people who have like a father with long thin fingers and a mother who have short squat fingers wind up with long thick fingers. I didn't. I wound up with short thin fingers, which is really good for delicate little things that I can do. However, that means I don't really like big, thick handles on things, which is why Furls hooks are not my jam. Now, they're beautiful. They are gorgeous. They are undoubtedly worth the money that you pay for them because they are expensive. And they, like, when they make them out of resin, they hand pour them so each one winds up with a different marbling effect. They are handcrafted and absolutely gorgeous. They have some with very thick handles. And some people with really big hands love them because it really does force you to loosen your grip. But because I have small hands, that is going to feel very big, awkward, and clunky for me. So I like these. Now this is actually a very cheap set I got off of Amazon. It was 7 or 8 hooks that go from 2 millimeter all the way up to 8 millimeter on the half step. And they are like this. They've got flat on both sides right here, but that makes it very easy to find where you're supposed to hold for maximum hooking. And I love them. 20 bucks for a full set of needles plus metal yarn needles with various shapes and eye sizes and needle sizes, as well as really cheap crap stitch markers that I don't care about. But if you got that equivalent set of stitch markers, they usually cost about $2 to $3. And if you got that equivalent set of yarn needles, they wind up costing $3 to $4. So a $15 set with hand grips, you can't find a better price. And I calculated it, it's about $1.35 per hook. Not bad at all. Also, these are comparable to Clover Amour hooks, which is what this one was. So $1.35 per hook, between $7 and $10 per hook, depending on the retailer. Almost exactly the same. Now these are different sizes, hence the different colors. And the only difference between these two hooks is that this one is rounded on this edge, whereas this one is flat on this side. This one's still flat on one side, which allows a little bit more easily twisting inside of your hand. Not much difference, and this one is a fraction of the price. Now, these were not perfect. There was one with a glitch, and it basically it wasn't finished properly inside the hook and it would catch on my yarn. So I threw that one away because it was $1.35. I didn't feel bad throwing it away, and I purchased a more expensive hook because the more expensive hook are the kind you can find to purchase individually. So that's my 2 cents worth. I really love these. You can get them in a variety of shapes. Clover is kind of known for having these. But you can purchase knockoffs that are actually pretty good. Now, some people complain because you can wind up eventually the glue that holds the grip to the hook can slide off. But here's a really quick and easy thing. Take a little bit of Elmer's glue, put it around the outside edge, and shove it back on, and it's not going to come off again. Proof of matter is that's what I did with this one. Because you're shoving it on, it's getting a little glue inside, it's actually going to seal very well. And then you can just wipe off the little bit of extra around the edge, still making sure to leave a little bit on that edge. It usually dries clear or white, and you've got it securely fixed back on. Now, one of the downsides of wooden crochet hooks is that sometimes they aren't properly sanded down underneath the hook. But if you have a little bit of sandpaper, fine grit sandpaper, you can fix that yourself. But if you're paying an arm and a leg for a hook, you want them to do it nicely. So go ahead and contact the creator of that hook and see if they can't fix that. But yeah, there's lots of options. And if you're not sure what will work best for you, buy a hook and test it out. See if it's worth it. Buy a Clover or more hook to see if this is something that works for you. Purchase a Furls hook to see if that's something that, makes the cost worth it. And from there, you can purchase sets. Sets typically on a cost per unit basis are less expensive overall. So if you find something you like, purchasing the whole set may very well be worth it. Anyway, I hope you found this useful. Happy crafting. Bye.